Good. Hi, welcome to our first live stream from BCG Digital Ventures. This is the first of what will hopefully be many live streams that we do. So we're really excited you've joined us. My name is Naseem Sayani. I'm a partner and director at Digital Ventures here in Manhattan Beach. And today we're going to be talking about engagement reimagined and how we're seeing data being used to evolve and transform how we're marketing and engaging with consumers. A couple of topics we'll cover. There are 5 big themes that are happening in this today. One is segments of one. We'll jump into a company that is actually very micro-targeting how they're delivering offers and deals to the consumers that work with them. The top is a new bottom, traceability. We'll talk about the power of choice. We'll talk about activation in real life. And then we'll hit my favorite, which is product AI. So the first one, segments of one. This is super interesting because there are a number of companies trying to transition from what is large segmentation models to very micro segmentation models. The most compelling example of this is Starbucks. What they've been able to do with taking in more than 10, 12, 15 different data sets and using that to drive the experience you have on the app. The engine that sits behind that is driven by both real-time data, transaction data, contextual data, weather data, that's giving them the opportunity to deliver to you an offer that matters to you. The example I like to share is that I'm a regular at Starbucks. I go every morning. I get the same tall non-fat latte. My sister goes once every month. She gets whatever she feels like that day. The offers she gets in her phone are completely different than the offers I get in my phone because of our behaviors. But they've built a model such that they don't subsidize my behavior, but they're encouraging her behavior. What's really interesting about this is they've gone from a user base, a transaction base, a customer base that's 400,000 people on average, and they had 30 variants of their segmentation with 400,000 people in each variant. They've now gone to a model where they have 400,000 variants with about 30 people in each of those variants. So you consider walking down the street, anywhere from 1 to 2 or 3 of those people are in the same variant as you when they walk into a Starbucks. So it's fascinating what they've been able to do to really micro-target your behavior with your coffee in the morning or afternoon, whenever you enjoy it. The second one is what I like to call the top is the new bottom. We've been in a world historically where businesses would create a product, put it into wholesale, then try and test it out in retail, and then go to e-commerce. And now the entire model has shifted. We're now seeing more and more brands actually completely start in digital and then go back into retail or back into wholesale or more B2B opportunities. 2 companies that are a good example of this, Soylent and Freshly. Many of you may know them. Many of you may love their product. What they've been able to do is exactly this. Start with a smaller base product, get it in the hands of people, get some feedback, and then start to scale. It's not a small trend. It's pretty significant. What you're looking at is the number of D2C brands that have launched only in 2019 until today. This is over 200 brands. These are all vertically integrated. They're all doing physical product and not content, not music, not commerce that's only online. Physical product, fully vertically integrated, and 95% of them are VC backed. So they've got funding and they're growing and hoping to change how you engage with the products you buy. The third one, traceability. This is a big deal. We all want to buy products that are saving the environment, that are not harming the environment around us. And more companies are taking advantage of this. They are using different types of software, data, information to actually give us a way to see where that product started and how it got to the plate that I'm eating. Food in particular is doing this in really compelling ways. There are companies building platforms to help me do that tracing from one end to the other. It's happening in diamonds, it's happening in apparel, it's happening across different sectors because we want to make sure that the environment that the product is made in is as productive and as economically positive and as human positive as it can be, given what I believe are my personal values for the products that I buy. So this is going to grow. This is going to change how we tell stories in market and how brands are engaging with you with the things that they want you to buy. The fourth is the power of choice. Now, I don't know how many of you have maybe 3 or 4 apps on your phone that you use more than anything. My 3 rather, the Starbucks app, which we already saw, Sweetgreen, and my YouTube app. And all three of these platforms, amongst many others, are taking every single click that I do to give me opportunities to choose something that's perfect for me. The example I like the most is Sweetgreen. What they've done with their entire data model that sits behind this app is they are putting ingredients into the selection flow for testing purposes, to test for quality, to test out new products. They use it not only to create what you order fast in the location, but they actually are using it at scale to drive how they inform their menu and how they put options on the platform for you to actually order and then quickly go down and get your meal. The founder did a really great interview recently where he talked about the blockchain initiative that they put in place. He talked about how they're using AI and machine learning to actually get to ideas that are sitting in the click behavior that they get from the app. It's an instrumental tool, not just to how you order and how they get you in the store, but it's feeding everything back into their entire supply chain, their entire production process, their entire sourcing process, so that they can make the best decisions for the products that they offer to you when you go in to buy or use your app to order. The next one is activation in real life. This is probably one of my favorite campaigns in recent history. If any of you saw what Burger King did earlier this year, it was the funnest thing to watch, because what they did was they understood a couple of key insights. One, people who buy Burger King Whoppers are die-hard Whopper fans. They love it. They will not eat any other burger. What they also understood is that compared to their biggest competitor, McDonald's, they have 1/3 the locations that McDonald's has, which means to go get my Whopper, I am driving by at least 1 or 2 different McDonald's locations. So the commitment is real, right? So they said, what can we do that would integrate these two insights? They launched a campaign, they built an app, and they said, go to McDonald's and get your Whopper for a penny. And they used their McDonald's competitor locations to drive volume and engagement to get people buying more Whoppers. And it actually worked. What they saw was an incredible amount of engagement. They saw 1.5 million app downloads, 3.5 billion earned media impressions, and a 37-to-1 campaign ROI. The money they put into it versus the money they got out of it, the engagement they increased, the data they've collected is phenomenal. It's probably one of the best examples of geo-targeting plus a consumer insight, plus ultimately just delivering a promotion that's been done so uniquely that they have now won tons of awards for it. They got a lot of credo at Cannes this year, but it's great. It's fun. Go look it up, find out more, seek out the app, go to a McDonald's, order your Whopper, but it's a really fun experience and it's super clever. Probably the most interesting thing we've seen out of this category in quite some time. The last one, this maybe is actually my favorite. So product AI. What's happening with data and machine learning right now is fascinating, because we're not just using it as companies and brands to deliver to what you want from a personalization perspective and giving you the type of experience you want in the moment that you're engaging with the brand. What companies are actually using it for now is really to inform every step of their business process. A great example here is Stitch Fix. Many of us are Stitch Fix users. We're fans of getting our box every month or 2 months. What they are doing to collect information, not just on the product they send you as a client, and the returns that you send back to them. Everything from the style to the color to the fit to what type of day part you use it in. They're using all of that to do a couple of things. They're informing, one, of course, the next box they send you. They're also informing what products they need in their catalog. They're actually adding catalog items based on the insight they get from that data. The third thing they're doing now is actually customizing and optimizing the different distribution centers in different locations so that people in LA have certain behaviors, certain preferences. That DC looks fundamentally different from an inventory perspective than the one on the East Coast because of the user insights they have from those people. So the entire business is leveraging the data they're getting back from what is a subscription box, but they've taken it to another level, and the data is phenomenal. You can go onto their site. It's really interesting. I'm a total geek and I love stuff like this, but you can go onto their site and actually step through the algorithm, and you can see what's happening with each part of how they collect the data and where they use it. And as I mentioned, they're doing it for personalized product, they're doing it for catalog additions, and they're doing it for local inventory planning. So they're completely transforming how apparel can get to you and what kind of insight they can drive from it. The other good example, of course, is Amazon, because you can't talk about all these things without also talking about Amazon. From an e-commerce perspective, by 2021, we're looking at Amazon covering probably 40 to 50% of that volume, and e-commerce being a primary channel for most e-commerce categories. Now, the interesting part about this with Amazon is that they've been doing this for some time. They are now increasingly using the data that they have around apparel to inform hundreds of their own private brands. They're taking all of the review information, the pricing information, what they understand in the feedback, and using all the best parts of that and their understanding of what price points sell, what types of products sell, where there's gaps in the catalogs of everyone on their platform to launch their own brands. And they're doing this in a couple of ways. They originally did Amazon Basics, that still is in place, large amount of information, like I said, using the pricing variations and the rating variations to drive how they pinpoint the positioning and merchandising of their own brands on the site. The second thing they're doing now is the drop, which is now pushing that model even further out, connecting with influencers and pulling them into the design process. So let me understand how this is demand sensing. We're trying to get in front of what consumers want, connect it to an influencer they care about, create a product they'll definitely buy, and ultimately try and take out some of the waste that sits on the back end of this process and create product that will actually sell. So it's fascinating because what they're doing to transition the data they have in their big data lake to actually driving new products in market is something we're all watching. It's something we have to continue to watch because Amazon will continue to be a big player in the market that we have to keep an eye on. But take a look at the drop. It's super interesting. Skip all this. So why does this all matter? We may have all seen what happened with Kraft Heinz earlier this year. It's an unfortunate story. We saw their stock price drop and drop and drop, and it ultimately fell off a cliff. This is interesting because you talk all these trends we just talked about. A lot of the insight on wellness, the insight on health trends, the transition to more farm to table are things that they didn't get ahead of fast enough. And a lot of their initiatives, based on what they said on analyst calls, what eventually emerged through interviews, a lot of the effort was on cost saving on the back end and less on innovation and leveraging data in good ways on the front end. It's really interesting because we've ultimately seen things like this happen before. This is not the first time we've seen a company stumble over not leveraging data in the best way. One good example is we saw what happened when Netflix hit the scene and they launched their streaming service, came out. This is the example on the bottom of the screen. And you saw a company's stock price fall and fall and fall, and then ultimately drop off a cliff. And that was Blockbuster. The one on top, same thing happened when Apple launched their first iPhone, which was only 2007, not that long ago. But we saw RIM, we all had Blackberries once upon a time, drop and drop and drop and ultimately fall off a cliff. So the integration of data, staying close to the user, getting in front of their behaviors is becoming ever more critical to how companies are going to market and how they're growing. And we've seen this trend happen over and over and over again. Kraft is just the most recent example of where they could have been faster than they were at resolving those differences. So really the end game here and everything we've talked about and these ideas that we keep so top of mind is about effectively competing in the market against the players that are sitting to your right and left. And it's all about now giving the customer what they want, when they want it, and how they want it. And that is what every brand needs to think about. It's what every company needs to be planning around. And there's a couple of dynamics to that. When we think about what they want, the big things that I like to ask questions on, the big things that matter to me are personalization and curation, creating some options for co-creation, bringing the user into that opportunity so they can help me create the product they will buy. And really recognizing for loyalty, right? We are much more personal with the brands that we engage with now. We want to know that they care that I'm buying their product. So make that important. Acknowledge when I've walked in the second time. Find small ways to say, hey, welcome back, whether that's online or offline or through an app. It's even more important to make sure loyalty is top of mind. When they want it, convenience is one of the biggest plays right now. The faster I can get my Sweetgreen and my coffee, the more often I'm going to go do that. So we're not necessarily, unless there's good reason, personalization is allowing for some of this. There's not a lot of reason why consumers are willing to wait anymore, unless I have pick things that I know are going to take 5 or 6 months. So convenience has to be part of the play. It has to be part of your go-to-market. And the option to get it now, right? Amazon has completely spoiled us, and we can get everything within a couple of hours. This has now set a different bar for every other brand in the market. So giving good thought to how you make that possible, what products you make that possible for, what channel you make it possible in, is going to be that much more important than it was historically. And then the last part, how they want it. So they want transparency and trust. This is where sustainability fits in. They want experiences, not just products. We've gone from a world where single page ads in a newspaper would reach everybody. Now I need you to walk into my boutique and talk to me before you'll buy something. Relevant product information. Lots of technical specs are not the answer. Give me the richness behind the use, the outcomes, the effectiveness. That's the things I want to hear before I buy something. And make it frictionless. Don't, 10 steps down to 2 steps, 5 steps to 3, the right steps for me to go through, so that the things that I want to engage with, the experiences I want to have, can be at the tip of my fingertips every moment of every day. So the question becomes, with all of this in mind, and what we work with our clients on every day is are you ready? Do you have the right people, the processes, the tools, the engagement with your consumer? Do you have data in hand? It's a lot of questions to solve, and you have to start somewhere. So giving good thought to how data fits into your organization, how it fits into your marketing plan, is everything we should be solving for, and it's what we try to think about every day. So any questions? I'm happy to take a few if we have any. We can also loop back after the cast. But thanks for joining, and we're looking forward to doing more of these. So thanks for being here.
We do have a question.
Okay.
One from Nicholas.
Sure.
And he wants to know which of these trends apply to B2B and how.
Ooh, that's a great question. So I would say the ones that apply to B2B, I think product AI applies to B2B, as well as traceability, and top is the new bottom. And I say that because the smarter our supply chains can get with the data we have, the better we'll be able to work with and manage our supplier and vendor partners. So sustainability is a good example. As a brand, I can commit to sustainability, but unless I can align on those commitments with everyone in my supply chain, I can't actually make it real for the consumer. So it starts with me engaging with my entire vendor baseline and supply chain group to make sure that we're all on the same page to make that real in front of the user. I think top as a new bottom is also important as we increasingly engage with products in our business lives the way we do in our consumer lives. Our ask of those products is still the same. We're still looking for convenience and speed, and an ability to transact online more than we ever did before. So thinking about how you can get there faster. How can you deliver on storytelling and voice and product experience in a way that doesn't require all the heavier steps of what the business model used to be, is going to be that much more important. So I think those 3 probably relate to B2B more than the others in the list. Anything else? That's all? Great. Thanks so much for joining us. We're looking forward to doing this again. Have a great week.